And there are our very first shots of Starliner from the WD-57.
Starliner's still got about 8 minutes left in this flight and hasn't even begun deploying its heat shield yet. That'll
你看到的是目前 Starliner 准备重返地球，降落在新墨西哥州的现场直播。现在距离降落还有不到8分钟。
But everything going well. Teams here on the ground, seeing good data, and hopefully we'll get a better and better view as it gets closer.
And that shot there on the left side of your screen now from the ground tracker. So we have two views now of Starliner as it makes its final approach to its landing zone there in White Sands, New Mexico.
And the team here in mission control reporting that they've heard from the landing and recovery teams that they're also seeing the Starliner. They'll have, of course, the front row seats, but we'll try and piggyback on that with these views that we're getting.
We are just under 7 minutes away from landing.
现在距离在沙漠降落不到7分钟。
Switching back to this graphic for just a moment as we wait for the forward heat shield deploy.
And we are starting to get a more clear view of Starliner now. We should be seeing the forward heat shield deploy here pretty quickly. And the forward heat shield has now jettisoned. That heat shield protected the spacecraft through those thermal loads during re-entry. And drogues are out.
2 drogue parachutes slowing Starliner's speed and drag.
我们可以看到现在 Starliner 的降落伞已经打开。
The main chutes to deploy in less than a minute. Main parachute deploy just about 30 seconds away.
我们知道过去美国的一些这个太空船主要是选择在海面上降落，包括在50年前登月的时候也是在海上降落。这一次可以说是美国太空船主要太空计划中第一次选择在陆地上沙漠降落。
View here from the ground tracker.
事实上，这个因为太空船绕行地球，重回地球的速度可以说非常快啊，要进行这样的转播，实际上并不是太容易。刚才我们说，这个主要太空计划中，美国的太空船多半是选择在海上降落啊。这一次 Starliner 等于说是第一次。那上一次试验的时候有进行降落试验，不过并不算是完成与太空站连接的任务。这一次是第一次与太空站进行连接后返回地球。
Starliner will be drifting down for another 2.5 or so minutes before it makes its touchdown, but all going smoothly. And we didn't just hear the rotation handle was released. That will help level out the capsule before touchdown.
And there goes the base heat shield right there in front of you. It just jettisoned. You can see it falling away from the spacecraft. It will reveal the airbags that will cushion Starliner's landing. And those airbags are now inflating. Starliner is 2 minutes, 40 seconds from landing. Actually closer to 2 minutes now. You could see those
现在距离这个接触地面不到2分钟。我们知道这一次 Starliner 上面是没有载人，不过有这个 Rossi 这个假人在上面哦。那上面载了很多的这个监测探测仪器哦。对于降落是否成功，研究人员希望从这个 Rossi 上面的这个数据能够取得一些证明哦，也为往后载人飞行哦打下好的基础。
Flight controllers here in the room reporting good airbags. Everything going exactly how we want to hear it. We are just coming up on about 1 minute away from touchdown there in White Sands, New Mexico.
Exact touchdown time will vary a little bit depending on the winds at the landing site, but everything's going smoothly. And I bet the teams there at the landing site are enjoying this view.
现在不到1分钟就要接触地面，也是最关键的时刻哦。基本上 Starliner 除了用这个降落伞来缓冲冲击力哦，另外它的这个返回舱本身哦，底下有这个气垫。所以这个气垫有点像我们的开车的这空气气囊哦，它在接触地面的时候，它胀开以后可以缓冲这样的冲击力。
In New Mexico, just seconds left.
See the mountains coming into frame there. We're getting very close to the ground.
几乎可以看到这个山哦。
And touchdown Starliner. We're touching down
哇，
in the
成
desert
功
of
降
New
落，
Mexico, marking the
可以
completion
说
of
是成
orbital
功
flight
降落
test
地面
2.
了。
And that touchdown coming at 5:49 p.m. Central Time, almost exactly 6 days into the mission. Just a beautiful touchdown in White Sands this
这与
evening.
这个原先这个波音以及 NASA 预估的降落时间哦，几乎是差距不到1分钟，可以说是这个推算的非常
We can
准
hear
确
some。clapping and cheering in the other room. 现场待命的车辆现在是接近这一次 Starliner 的返回舱哦。这除了是这个研究方便以外，也为未来这个接运太空人返回地球也建立新的模式。如果您留心太空发展，你会注意到这个天龙太空船基本上，也就是 SpaceX 所开发的这个Crew Dragon 哦，它基本上还是选择在这个海面上降落，然后由这个捕捞船把它捕捞回这个船体哦。那波音公司开发的 Starliner
是选择在陆地上降落。
Again, where the first stop is going to be the 500-foot mark. We're driving pretty slow here, about 25 miles along the white sand, gypsum sand. Once we get to that 500 mark, the first team that will move into the 120-foot mark will be the gold team, and then they will do that first visual assessment before they give the clear.
现场转播画面传来是这个黑白的画面，并不是我们streaming 让它这个颜色有所流失哦，主要是现场传回来的画面就是这个黑白的画面。我们都知道，就是说这一次 Starliner 可以说跟太空站进行4天半的连结之后，成功脱离这个国际太空站，然后进行返回地球的任务。那我们知道，刚才经过这个降落伞缓冲啊，目前 Starliner 已经成功的降落在新墨西哥州的白沙沙漠。
And then we have the hatch opening, and then any of the cargo removal. Again, we're driving pretty slowly. We're heading to the crew module and an upwind direction, and this is to keep the team safe and away from any potential hazards as we approach. Again, the crew module uses a hypergolic propellant that, when it does turn into vapor, it can be very toxic. So we take that very seriously. Safety is the number one concern and priority for the flight crew and from the team here on the ground. So when the gold team does arrive, they will be monitoring that throughout the whole operation. Again, the first stop is the 500-foot mark, and again, if you hear the rush in my voice, it's definitely a sight to see. For all of the Boeing team here, it's definitely a proud moment.
And hey, I don't have a whole lot else to add. It was pretty surreal as Starliner just almost seemed to materialize in thin air directly above us. We were able to see it come down under both strokes, see those deploy, and see all three good mates. We were treated to what I believe was a sonic boom award. That may have been some of the pyro events, but that kind of announced.
目前我们可以看到，就是说传来这个比较清晰的画面哦。这一次的这个研发对于波音来说非常重要，因为整个 Starliner 的计划已经延后非常多年哦。波音公司也为此去花了非常多额外的开支。那这一次成功，除了对波音公司很重要，也对未来国际太空站的交通工具，可以说除了天龙太空船之外，多一种选择。
Continuing to close in, and we'll be bringing you a lot closer views real soon.
As Dan mentioned, we can now see the crew module right ahead of us. We can visually see it, and it's definitely a great sight to see. So, Lauren, we'll toss it back to you, and we'll come back to you as soon as we can establish a seat again.
That was Dan.
从远处的这个拍摄画面可以看到，这个 Starliner 的这个气囊非常巨大不过也几乎从我们这个角度看过去，几乎是全部张开，应该是对于的 Starliner 在降落上发挥非常好的缓冲作用哦。
And here's a piece of information that I know a lot of people on our team will be really happy to hear. We are told that Starliner landed about 0.3 of a mile southeast of the landing site, which is basically a bullseye.
You can see those airbags that we talked about earlier that are intended to give crew on board when we have them a nice soft landing. All deployed as planned. That's going to be one of the things the teams are checking on as they do arrive at the landing site. We've got, as you heard, Dan and Rosa mentioning, we've got a pretty big group of people who are making their way out there because it's a pretty big job to recover a spacecraft once it is
你可以看到，目前 Starliner 太空飞船的返回舱已经成功降落在新墨西哥州的白沙沙漠。这一次是美国主要太空计划中，太空船可以说是在近几十年来第一次是选择在陆地上降落。 那借着降落伞以及这个气垫来缓冲阻力，目前Starliner 已经成功降落在新墨西哥州的沙漠。
Much more comfortable than our team out there in the desert. And you may have noticed just a few seconds after Starliner made its touchdown, the main chutes fall away from the spacecraft, and that just keeps those chutes from catching any wind that could drag the capsule, which obviously makes things easier for the landing team as they begin to make their way toward the vehicle and start their procedures.
Once again, if you missed it, the Starliner touched down at 5:49 p.m. Central Time. That's 4:49 p.m. Mountain Time. Crew on board the International Space Station was watching as it touched down, giving it one last proper send-off. And we are just waiting for the recovery teams to get out to the vehicle. You can see, I think, it looks like we've got video from one of the cars here on the bottom right-hand side of the screen as they're making their way out. We last heard from them a couple minutes ago that they were still about 1 kilometer away, so they should be arriving pretty quickly. And then they'll begin the long process of getting the Starliner ready to return home to Florida.
One of the major benefits of being able to land on land like this is not having to battle that harsh salt water that could be, have an impact on the spacecraft in the water. And of course, this is a reusable spacecraft.
这边讲了一个非常有趣的论点呢，就是说为什么选择在沙漠降落而不在海面上降落？因为我们知道这个 Starliner 的这个返回舱可以用10次左右，如果一切正常的话，可以用10次。那为避免这个海水浸泡对于这个太空船返回舱的舱体造成这个腐蚀跟破坏选择在干燥的陆地上降落，实际上是比在海面上降落带来更多的好处。
Starting to see some of the recovery teams arrive.
目前我们可以看到，在右上角的画面上，这个已经有车辆是接近 Starliner。
On site is the command vehicle. They are at the front of the convoy, and where the recovery ops leader and recovery director, who are in charge of the entire operation, will wait to go in.
我们可以看到现场转播的，除了左上角的近距离画面右上角这是一个比较长的镜头拍摄画面，那左下角应该是透过热像仪所显现出来的画面，在右下角这一块应该是这个从卫星的空拍画面从各个不同角度，现在我们来看这个 Starliner 降落以后开舱迎接的一些行动
The recovery director is in the command vehicle, along with the recovery ops leader.
Now you see a lot of that team starting to arrive on site there. And our gold team will be the first to arrive up to the vehicle.
As you heard Dan and Rosa say, they are the first vehicle, so they do a sniff test for hydrogen, making sure that there's none of that in the air that could hurt any of the recovery team members. They'll be wearing hazmat suits to protect them from any they might fight. Hopefully that'll be clear, though, and then the rest of the team members can begin moving in.
为了担心这个太空以及在返回过程中的一些这个不必要的一些气体跟物质对人体造成伤害，首批抵达这个 Starliner 太空船的人员啊，是穿好了防护装备，是接近这个 Starliner 太空舱。
They use special sensors to sniff for it, and then they're able to notify the rest of the convoy when it's safe. That team will also check the wind to make sure that the entire landing and recovery team is staged uprange from the direction the wind is blowing, just for an added set of protection there.
We also are starting to get some photos from the members of the recovery team. We've got one here to show from you from Bill Ingalls, NASA photographer, as Starliner was making its way down for that 5:49 p.m. Central Time landing.
现在一边等待这个地上的迎接人员接近太空舱啊，另外这个转播当中啊，他们也展现一些刚刚在降落过程中所拍摄下来的关键画面。
Gives you a patriotic feeling to see that there, and to think about really the fact that we now have a successful mission, and just kind of, think about what this means for our country.
Absolutely.
现场我们也听到这个整个这控制中心所传出来的掌声啊，基本上大家认为这一次的任务啊，基本上是成功的。现在你看的是空拍的画面啊，这应该是这个飞机或直升机在这个降落地点的一个空拍画面。
Much clearer than our other view. Very nice.
Yeah, we're getting now some close-up views of Starliner there on the ground.
现在地面的转播车已经传回来这个地面拍摄的画面。
Just like we have a flight director here in Mission Control, there's a recovery director on site there who will be leading operations.
And as I mentioned earlier, when Starliner returned from its first flight, we did notice 2 black stripes up the sides of the spacecraft. We've seen those as well on this time, and that just indicates that the heat was ablated as intended. We expected to see that. It's a good thing to see that. It means that that ablative heat shield did its job.
Ablative heat shields wear away with the heat and take the heat with them rather than letting it transfer
如果
to
过
the
去有
inside
看
of the
这
crew
个
module
视
where the
频的人
crew
应该知道，
needs to be
这一
protected.
次这个波音所采用
And you
Starliner
can
太
start to
空
see
船
there
啊，
some of the gold team
跟这
making
个
its
美
way
国
out
传
of the
统的
vehicle,
这个返回
and
舱一
will
样，
soon
在
be
这个
coming
太
over
空
to the
船的底部
spacecraft
哦，
to
有一
begin
个
its
比较
checks.
关键性的，他们叫做是一个隔热盾哦。 这隔热盾可以抵抗这个上千度的高温那在返回的地球的过程当中，它是可以阻挡许多的这个高热，也对于太空船本身是带来连结跟保护。
Hewitt coming to you guys live now. So we're just about 500 feet away, and the convoy has paused. And as we talked about, so the gold team is in there right now. They do a sweep up close around the capsule looking for any hydrazine fumes. Hydrazine, it's a hypergolic fuel.
你可以看到这个画面中间这两个人拖着一个这个装备接近太空船身上是穿着这个防护装备。是避免接触带回来，万一里头有这个所谓的有毒的气体。
That's right, Dan. As you can see probably in your camera views, they're dressed in hazmat suits, and they're going to do an initial sweep. They're doing that right now as they're walking around the crew module. You can see those airbags are inflated, and they're going to take their time to do that. Obviously, it is we want to keep the team safe, and once they do that, they're going to give the next team that go to proceed, which is going to be the silver team. And again, they're going to ground and stabilize the vehicle and make it safe for the crew to actually touch the crew module as well. So we're going to continue to see this live. As you can see, the parachutes are to our direction, to the left here, and the team that will be safing and recovering those parachutes will be the silver team as well. So when it's their turn to come in, you'll see them working off to the side, gathering those parachutes, doing their assessment as well.
Yeah, and they're going to be collecting up that base heat shield, which actually landed probably only about 200 feet off to our right, so that's super close. So if we were able to get some views of that on OFT1, and we'll do our best to get you some views of that as well. So after Silver Team's able to do that, you're going to start to see a lot of the convoy moving in. We've got a green team, which I don't know if we've touched on yet, but they're bringing a lot of equipment with them. They're going to put up an environmental enclosure. It kind of looks like a bounce house. It's just to go around Starliner, helps to provide it some extra cooling, and also just protect it from the elements as we're out here. As again, this vehicle is going to be reused. Any steps we can take to just kind of isolate it from the environment will help in that refurbishment. And they're also going to be setting up an HVAC system, providing some active cooling to the capsule, as once it's powered down, it's not using any of that active cooling on board.
And I did just get word that we are going to have the silver team move in to cut the riser, and that is that connection that is still connected to the parachute. So you will probably see that in your shot. It's practically like a string, and they will be going in there and doing that procedure as part of their recovery operations as well. So we're going to continue to see the different teams do their different procedures, and we'll report as we see the different steps here.
Yeah, we've got a big squad also, the red team. They'll be bringing in probably some of the most visual hardware, a lot of the really big stuff. They've got what's called a MAP, a mobile access platform. It will look very similar to just a big yellow platform with some stairs. That's what's going to give them direct access to that hatch, as your hatch lead is also on the red team. They're also going to be driving up the medical truck. Obviously, we don't have any crew on board today, but we're going through all of the motions of this to practice just for when we are flying crew. And so they'll back that medical truck up, and that's what we're going to be using once we have crew on board. That's going to be kind of their first steps out of the capsule and into there.
Also, the hazmat has been complete. Everything is nominal. Again, this team did that first initial assessment, and they're going to continue to monitor for any potential hypergolic leaks. Again, making sure the team is safe out there from the crew module. And so everything's looking great out here. It's still very warm. As you saw us before, we're wearing sunglasses. It's really bright out here. And so we're protecting our eyes. We're keeping safe, drinking lots of water as we, again, welcome Starliner home from its orbital flight test 2.
If you're still with us, we're going to go ahead and toss it on back as they're completing that assessment. We're going to get back into our cars and be able to move in a little bit closer, and then we'll rejoin you very shortly.
And you may have noticed there as that drone flies over the base heat shield that really dropped away not too far from where Starliner landed. You may have heard a lot of clapping in the background here. Boeing and NASA leadership have made their way into mission control, and there is quite the celebration going on in here.
Flight Director Mike Lammers congratulating his team on a successful flight and touchdown. Again, that came at 5:49 p.m. Central Time.
And you can see our team in the hazmat suits there. That is part of the gold team. Again, they are making their way up to do the sniff test. A lot of times when you hear sniff test, you imagine they will actually be sniffing with their own nose, but that is not the case. There is a reason they are in hazmat suits. They have a device that actually performs that sniff test for them.
As Dan Hewitt mentioned, the ground team is now off and moving in closer with that sniff test coming through all clear.
You can see them performing that now.
Once they do move in, I think the silver team is up next, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's the silver team's job to ground the vehicle. Starliner will be powered down, but there could be some residual electricity. So before anyone can touch the vehicle, they will ground and discharge it. Just a great shot there, as I mentioned earlier. During our last flight, we landed during the dark and in the middle of the night, and so this is the first time that we've been able to see just such clear pictures of Starliner's crew capsule there in the desert of white sands. You can see that black stripe I mentioned, which is just kind of a badge of honor. It lets us know that the engineering done to protect that spacecraft during the hottest part of its reentry did its job.
清洗设备啊，因为从外太空来的物质跟地球上的物质啊，必须还是要做区隔，
Another photo coming in from that, I guess the blue team, which is the communications team that's on site. This one again from Bill Ingalls, a NASA photographer who was part of that the landing convoy, getting looks like a photo just seconds before touchdown there.
And a beautiful sight just to see Starliner there with the backdrop of the mountains. I have a feeling this is a picture that a lot of people will have up on their wall. We will stay with our team out on at the landing site until the hatch is opened. That will be done by the red team, so that's the team we'll pay most attention to. And they are mostly made up of fire rescue, Boeing's fire rescue. The mobile access platform will get backed up to the hatch on the crew module, and that's able to give the team access there. If we did have astronauts on board today, this is the part when they would start to exit and be taken directly into the medical truck for any post-landing medical checkups. But we
Speaking of astronauts who could be on board, I think Butch Wilmore is there with the team. He's one of the first up to fly on board Starliner, getting a good look at what he could expect from a Starliner touchdown.
Butch telling us that he was very jealous of Rosie getting to ride in the commander's seat today, and I'm sure he will have some more words for her once he gets to get up close there to the spacecraft.
Definitely seeing some of those teams begin moving in closer now.
"现在第二组也就是银色组的工作人员哦，是接近太空船。我们都知道 Starliner 这一次是没有载人进行测试，不过上面载有这个一个假人哦，叫 Rossi。 它身上载有非常多的传感器，能够记录在返回地球这个途中所受到的人体冲击哦，这也为未来载人飞行提供相当有用的数据。
It's only been 26 minutes now since Starliner touchdown, so you can get an idea of how quickly those that landing and recovery team can move in for a land recovery. Already through that hydrazine sniff test that we've been talking about, and getting ready to move on to the Silver team's grounding electrical test. Team here in the room has already handed control over to the recovery director who is on site, and now they've got responsibility for Starliner.
The spacecraft landed just 0.3 of a mile southeast of the landing site today, which they consider pretty much a bullseye, exactly where we want to put her, down in the desert. Of course, being so important that we're able to show that our autonomous spacecraft can perform as we plan.
这一次 Starliner 降落的地点跟原先计划的地点可以说是非常非常的接近哦。我们刚才前面有聊过，就是这一次 Starliner 是选择在沙漠中降落，实际上是有特别的意义，因为我们知道这个 Starliner 的返回舱可以连续使用最多10次，因为要不断使用哦，所以希望尽量保持 Starliner 这个返回舱的完整。那浸泡在海中会容易对于这个船体的结构以及这个表面造成这个破坏或腐蚀哦，所以选择在干燥中的沙漠降落，研究人员认为说会对于船体可以带来较好的保护，所以这也是为什么这个 Starliner 太空飞船选择在沙漠降落的原因。
And we have confirmation now that the Silver team has been able to ground the vehicle, and ground cooling has now been established. Our NASA and Boeing colleagues are still in a holding pattern right now as they wait to get the go-ahead that it is safe to move closer to the spacecraft. And once they do that and we establish a shot with them, we will go back out to them live to get an update on what they can see from their perspective. And you may have noticed there that our teams have backed away from the spacecraft. They are doing so after detecting a very low amount of hydrazine. We're just giving it time to burn off. And then our teams will move back in when it's safe and begin those procedures. Again, Starliner landed at 5:49 Central, 4:49 Mountain Time today, just about 41 minutes ago in the deserts of White Sands, New Mexico. We have several teams that will be moving in shortly to go through a list of procedures, starting with the gold team. That's the team that we did see just a short time ago doing that sniff test for the hydrazine. They do this with a device while wearing protective gear known as hazmat suits, just to prevent any exposure to that hypergolic propellants. Hydrazine is used as a propellant, and if it turns into vapor, it can be very toxic. So we use special sensors to sniff for it, and then they will notify the rest of the team when it's safe to move in. They also check to see which direction the winds are blowing so that they can make sure and set that entire landing team up uprange from those winds. Our team is a safe distance away from the spacecraft right now, and everyone that is near the spacecraft is wearing hazmat suits. That, of course, was the gold team that we did see wearing those hazmat suits. We have a live look from the drone again up in the right-hand corner of your screen, and a ground view there on the left side. And you may see an ambulance down there on the bottom of your screen. That is a normal part of the convoy. When we do have astronauts on board, they will be getting medical checkups as soon as they land. And a lot of practice is going into this time, even though we don't have astronauts on board. There are a lot of things that our team is running through as if we do, so that they get some practice in before that group flight test.
我们刚刚可以看到这个第一组，也就是金色组的人员是穿着这个防护装备，是接近 Starliner 太空船啊。经过初步的检测，这个在现场所探测到的这个氢气数据并不高，所以接下来他们第二组，也就是银色组的人员啊，会这个接近太空船，并展开接下来的一些这个接近太空船的步骤。
See a look back in here at Mission Control, where a lot of the NASA and Boeing team members and leadership have moved their way in to congratulate the flight controllers on the mission.
Flight Director Mac Lambers, you can see there, right in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen here, talking to Steve Stitch, the Commercial Crew Program Manager. Lammers has officially handed over control of the vehicle, so his part today is done. He's now enjoying handshakes around the room. The team has really been happy to see Starliner safely.
接下来可能还要花一段时间，第二组也就是银色组的人员才会接近太空船哦，距离打开舱门以及运载这个太空船。未来回到基地啊，还会有很长一段时间。不过我们可以看到，控制中心的工作人员现在可以说已经是松了一口气哦，大家在互相交谈，可以很清楚看得到他们原来紧绷的脸上，现在是有比较多的笑容。
our team is back on site, and they do perform that sniff test once again to make sure that there's been time for the gas to burn off from the hydrazine. The green team will move in, and they will hook up the HVAC trailers to the crew module to get that ground cooling going. But their first job is to put an environmental enclosure on the crew module. You may have heard our teams talking about that earlier, that it kind of looks like a big inflatable or a big bounce house that goes up around the crew module there. They will wrap it around and get cool air into the module to make sure that the vehicle and its critical systems don't overheat there on the desert floor. Once again, we have a live view from our drone. Looking over the landing site, you can see the full convoy. You can see the parachutes that were cut away as soon as we landed after a few seconds. And there in the middle of that screen, you can see the base heat shield that was jettisoned and fell to the desert ground just not too far away from the spacecraft. This being a flight test, our teams have really learned a tremendous amount of vital information about Starliner as we had our first rendezvous with the International Space Station and then docked with the International Space Station. Spent a few days up there with the astronauts who were able to move in and take some of the cargo out and repack some of that cargo for us before Starliner undocked a little bit earlier today and made its way back home to the desert in White Sands. And you can see the gold team there moving back toward the spacecraft to perform another sniff test with that device. You can see them wearing their protective hazmat suits. That, of course, to protect them from any exposure to the hypergolic propellant.
wait to hear the results of this latest sniff test. We're going to toss it back to Dan and Rosa, who are there on site, a safe distance away, to give us an update. Dan?
Hey, thanks, Brandy. Yeah, we're still at about the 500-foot point, and hopefully you guys can hear me right now. So we're still at 500 feet away. As you saw, everybody did back away from the capsule, and that was by design. So the gold team was in. They detected a faint trace of hydrazine. So this is something they train for. This is something they prepare for. They gave the go for everybody not wearing those kind of hazmat suits to back away from the capsule while they continue to troubleshoot.
And we just got word that we are detecting at 0 now, so everything looks like it's going in the right direction. Again, as you mentioned, this team has trained for many years. It's part of our procedures. Again, they're still going to continue to monitor those levels, but all is looking nominal now that we've gotten that read for 0. And you know, something great about this team is that this team is made up of many disciplines. We have most of our teammates are from all over the country. So again, experts in what they do. They've been training for a number of years. They've been here again for a few days, doing a few mission dress rehearsals, and so we are, ready to, deal with these things that come up, and we'll continue to go through our normal procedures.
Yeah, and I just got the word we're at 0 parts per million, so you're not getting even the faintest of traces of hydrazine at this point. So we'd already gone through a couple of the steps after they went in and hadn't detected any initially. One of the steps that the gold team actually takes is to install some covers on those thrusters that use that hydrogen propellant. So after that was detected, they were able to go through, double check those, and now we're back down to essentially 0. So you guys have also been reporting, so we did successfully complete the grounding of the capsule, and the green team was able to establish that ground cooling. So again, had we had crew inside, they are protected by a pressurized atmosphere inside the cabin from any hydrazine leaks outside, and at this point we've already established that ground cooling. So should any of crew have been inside, they would not have been in any danger from that hydrazine, and they would be adequately cooled with that ground support hardware that's already in place.
And that hatch is stabilized and grounded. Again, the silver team, it leads that. It's one of the initial steps to ground and stabilize the vehicle, making it safe for the team to be able to approach it and touch the vehicle. So again, we still see some of the procedures going on in front of us right now, and we're going to continue to give you those updates as we receive them here on the landing site at White Sands, New Mexico.
Yeah, and so now that we're at that point where we'll start to move in, and I'm getting the signal now that it looks like we're about to start rolling. So we're going to toss it back to the team in Houston, and hopefully the next time you hear from us, we'll just be about 100 feet away from the capsule. Over to you guys.
All right, that is great news, and we are looking forward to checking back in with you when you get up close. And we just have a beautiful sight from the drone here, really up close look at those hazmat crews doing their job. They are a member again of the gold team, and this is something they practice extensively for. And really everything just worked out perfectly the way it's supposed to. They made their way up there, and we're now told that they have a 0 reading. So they will be giving the go-ahead for the rest of the teams to start making their way back over. There were some operations that were able to be complete earlier. We know that the vehicle was grounded, meaning that they were able to make sure that there was no residual electricity. You may have noticed the hazmat team was touching the vehicle. That is something they were able to safely do because that grounding did occur earlier. And we will have the green team moving back in here shortly. The next thing that we'll be seeing here shortly is the green team coming in to set up the environmental enclosure that will go over the crew module. Looks like a big inflatable. It will just set down nicely right over the top of the vehicle. And that will be to help them get cool air around it and inside of it, and to make sure that the vehicle's critical systems do not overheat. Of course, very hot out there in the desert. An interesting swing from what our crews experienced during the last flight when they landed at nighttime in the darkness, and also in the wintertime. It was quite cold. I believe it was only about 16 degrees or so. When Starliner landed around 5:49 Central, 4:49 Mountain Time today, it did land under 3 good main parachutes, as well as fully inflated airbags. And these capabilities are just something that help us turn the vehicle around in a much quicker time frame. Of course, this is a reusable crew module, can be used up to 10 times with at least a 6-month turnaround time. You can see the NDS cover at the top of the crew module. That is the NASA docking system cover. And that has been added to our vehicle since the last flight to further protect the NASA docking system during those hot loads as Starliner makes its way back down to Earth through entry interface. We do also see exactly what we expected to see with the crew module returning through that hot entry interface. You can see that black marking there on the left side of it. There's another one on the exact opposite side. And it's the same thing we saw after our last flight. These are just proof that the ablative material that is wrapping around Starliner is doing its job when it is able to protect the crew module as it comes back through the hottest part of its ride home.
Continuing to see live views from the New Mexico desert an hour after Starliner's 5:49 p.m. Central touchdown. Starliner came in for a landing across Baja Peninsula and the northwestern corner of Mexico before making it to New Mexico. And the teams there on the ground reported that they did hear the sonic boom as the spacecraft came in. They're making their way steadily now through these recovery steps. Looks like the green team might be getting close to wrapping up. They'll be followed by the red team, which will we'll see open the hatch on Starliner. Give Rosie some fresh air.
You can see the gold team now moving away from the spacecraft. Of course, when we spoke with Rosa and Dan just a short time ago, they did report that there was a 0 hydrazine on the meters, so a good sniff test. And we do expect to see them alert the other teams to start moving back into the spacecraft.
And all the teams, looks like now getting that go ahead to start moving in again. No hazmat suits necessary at this point, and they can keep working through those recovery steps.
So this is the silver team that has moved in now safely after that sniff test was done. They were able to ground the vehicle, which is part of their job. They did that a little bit earlier. And that's just to make sure that there's no residual electricity. Of course, Starliner was already powered down, but it's just an extra safety step. And we're starting to see the green team work to set up that environmental enclosure. And on the right side of your screen, the red team is moving in, and that's the team that we really want to pay most attention to because they will be opening the hatch. That team is made up mostly of Boeing Fire Rescue, and as you can see there, they're moving that mobile access platform in right up to the hatch on the crew module, just so they can have the closest access to opening the hatch. And of course, this is the team, had we had astronauts on board, that would be getting them out and moving them over to the medical truck where they would get post-landing medical checkups.
We're ready now to take you back to the landing site to hear more from Dan Hewitt and Rosa Benuelos to give you the latest information on what's going on out there. Dan, Rosa?
Thanks, Brandy. Again, it's great to be with you again from our landing site here at White Sands, New Mexico. It's been quite the eventful day. We continue to go through the landing and recovery operations as a team has been now where we see the mobile access platform behind us. The